The Allen Lund Company is celebrating 48 years in transportation. Stop by and see us at Matt's, booth 18193.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
The Tennessee DOT has reversed course on split speed limits on a 22-mile stretch of Interstate 81. The decision raises all sorts of questions at a time when FMCSA is considering a speed limiter mandate. We speak with Mark Nagy of the Tennessee DOT. Two communities in two different states recently gave two middle fingers to truck drivers just looking for a safe place to park. We'll get into that and more with Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. And finally, the DAT load board saw an increase last week in load posts, but overall rates for vans and reefers decreased once again. Robert Rouse of DAT covers that and explains how the storm in Northern California is impacting freight movement. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. A pair of lawmakers have kicked off efforts in the House and Senate to overturn the U.S. Department of Labor's new worker classification rule. Representative Kevin Kiley of California and Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana introduced Congressional Review Act resolutions aimed at stopping a final rule that they say jeopardizes the ability of 27 million Americans to work as independent contractors. In January, the Department of Labor unveiled a 339-page final rule with the stated purpose of preventing companies from misclassifying workers as independent contractors. The action, set to take effect on March 11th, rescinds a Trump-era rule that focused on control and profit and replaces it with a totality of circumstances test. The Department of Labor believes the new final rule will reduce the risk that employees are misclassified as independent contractors. Opponents of the new worker classification rule have expressed concern that this is a move toward a model introduced in California, Assembly Bill 5, which codified the ABC test and made it difficult for workers to be considered independent contractors. But the Labor Department has denied those claims, saying its worker classification rule is not modeled after AB 5 or the ABC test. Meanwhile, the Treasury Department has been hit with a ruling that could upend a new anti-money laundering rule. The Associated Press reports that a federal district judge in Alabama has filed an injunction on the rule, finding that the Treasury Department cannot require small business owners to report details on their owners and others who benefit from the business. The move, made as part of the Corporate Transparency Act, requires tens of millions of small businesses to register with the government as part of an effort to prevent the criminal abuse of anonymous shell companies. But the federal judge said the law is unconstitutional and an example of government overreach. A Treasury spokesperson, in response to the ruling, said they are complying with the injunction, but noted that they are merely following the lead of Congress, which overwhelmingly voted to enact the law in 2021. Support continues to build for a House bill that would bar FMCSA from imposing a speed limiter mandate. Representative Diana Harshbarger of Tennessee is the latest to co-sponsor H.R. 3039, the DRIVE Act, lifting the total to 38. She is the fourth U.S. congressman to get on board since OOIDA issued a call to action on February 21st, asking its approximately 150,000 members to reach out to their lawmakers. FMCSA plans to publish a supplemental notice of proposed rulemaking this coming May, at which time the agency is likely to reveal what it has in mind for a top speed. OOIDA has been pushing back against a mandate from the get-go, pointing out the safety implications that would arise due to increased interactions between commercial trucks and passenger vehicles, not to mention the added costs for owner-operators in particular. To get involved in the fight, check out fightingfortruckers.com. Whereas support for the DRIVE Act is being driven by Republican lawmakers, the support for another bill in the House is bipartisan, and it's also growing. For the first time in nearly 2 months, H.R. 2367, the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, picked up a new co-sponsor. The bill would put a big dent in the truck parking shortage nationwide by funneling $755 million over 3 years toward the construction of new, free, and publicly available truck parking spaces. Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas apparently thinks that's a good idea because he signed on as the bill's 47th co-sponsor this week. Putting pressure on your elected representatives to get on board with bills like this doesn't have to be complicated. Again, the fightingfortruckers.com website is a one-stop shop for reaching out. ExxonMobil is effectively dropping its years-long bid to haul oil by truck through parts of Santa Barbara County in California. The issue first came to light in 2017 when ExxonMobil filed a permit application with the county asking to resume operations at the Santa Ynez unit. Plans called for trucks to haul oil on highways 101 and 166 for up to 7 years or until a new pipeline was built. But the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors later voted against the project on the advice of a commission, which found that the benefits did not outweigh the risk of oil spills and to the health and safety of nearby residents. That launched ExxonMobil's federal lawsuit, which was just dropped. By dismissing it, ExxonMobil is conceding to Santa Barbara County's decision to ban its proposed trucking operations from hauling oil through the county. Deadly wildfires in Texas have prompted the state to declare an emergency. The fires have killed at least 2 people and spread across more than 1 million acres since they first started burning in late February. With the emergency declaration, the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles has suspended vehicle registration and size and weight requirements for operators of commercial motor vehicles providing disaster assistance in Texas. Some restrictions apply, and drivers operating under the relief must carry copies of the Texas DMV notice and the state's disaster declaration. For up-to-the-minute updates on road conditions in Texas and the other 49 states, check out landline.media and look under the Resources tab. Start the countdown to April 8th. We're about a month away from a total solar eclipse that will cut a path over parts of the United States. Arkansas is in a prime viewing spot, and officials there continue to plan for the flood of tourists that are expected to come. And Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders expects a lot of them, anywhere from 300,000 to 1.5 million visitors.
Next month's eclipse has the potential to be one of the largest tourism events in our state history, and we want to make sure that we are prepared for the influx of visitors that we expect to come here to the state.
The governor and other state officials held a news conference this week laying out their plans for the influx of visitors. Roadway safety is a focal point. Based on their research of other eclipse events, Arkansas DOT Director Lori Tudor said there will be delays on roadways. They've spent some 2 years on a traffic management plan that will go into effect in the days leading up to and following the eclipse on April 8th.
We've put in place several measures as a part of that plan. We've scheduled a construction holiday. There will be no lane closures or active work zones from Friday, April 5th until Tuesday the 9th. We're working with the Arkansas Trucking Association to limit oversized and overweight loads traveling through Arkansas. To keep traffic moving, we will detour traffic onto parallel routes if needed.
Arkansas officials previously suggested that carriers take a voluntary truck holiday and park their vehicles for the day. There was no mention, however, of that suggestion during Tuesday's news conference. For more information on Arkansas's plan, they've set up a webpage, arkansas.com/eclipse. Other states in the path of totality are also making plans, including Indiana, where officials are urging eclipse watchers not to stop on roadways or park on shoulders or do anything that would impede traffic. Pilot Travel Centers announcing plans to build 10 new truck stops this year, adding some 500 truck parking spaces in the process. The plans this year also call for remodeling more than 75 locations nationwide. Pilot also built 10 new locations in 2023, bringing the total number of stores across the U.S. and Canada to more than 850. And finally, Sheetz is offering a discount on diesel for the rest of the month. Through the end of March, truckers who use their My Sheetz Rewards card will save 25 cents a gallon on diesel. Sheetz says the offer is good at all 43 of their truck stop locations. The promotion, however, does not include diesel exhaust fluid. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, Mark Nagy of the Tennessee Department of Transportation discusses the end of the split speed limit on Interstate 81. We'll hear about 2 communities saying no to truck parking from Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine, and Ashley Blackford discusses the state of the freight market with Robert Rouse of DAT. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Loadboard Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Loadboard Pro.
Buckling up keeps everyone safe on the roads. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. Paid for by FMCSA.
Landline Now, welcome back. For the first time since 2007, commercial trucks traveling on Interstate 81 in eastern Tennessee will be allowed to travel at the same speed as everyone else. The Tennessee Department of Transportation put an official end to its split speed limits on I-81 starting Monday, March 4th. Before that, and dating back more than 16 years, the speed limit for heavy trucks was set at 55 miles an hour between the Washington County line and the Virginia state line. For everyone else, it was 65, but now it's 70 miles an hour for all. Transportation officials in Tennessee said the change was made after taking recent speed studies, crash data, and public comments into account. We recently spoke with Mark Nagy about the change. Nagy, the Tennessee DOT's Community Relations Officer for Region 1, which includes East Tennessee, said this decision was not made on a whim, as you might imagine. It's a result of a study that looked at the split speed differential that also took public input into account, and that's where we'll start. So I guess we can start then with this decision, right, that was just made recently. How much roadway specifically does this change affect, and where exactly are we talking about?
Okay. Well, the decision was made after traffic studies, reviewing the roadway history, geometrics, reviewing speeds along this roadway, analyzing crash data. That's where the decision was made to change the speed limit from which it used to be 65 miles an hour for vehicles and 55 for trucks to now 70 miles per hour for all vehicles. And this is a 22-mile stretch of I-81 in Sullivan County in Upper East Tennessee. What moving the speed limit to 70 miles an hour will also do here is it will give us consistency on either side of that 22-mile stretch. Because if you're on I-81 coming from Virginia, it's 70 miles an hour across the state line there, and it's also 70 miles an hour just past the Sullivan County line in Washington County. So this is going to give consistency in terms of speed throughout that long stretch of corridor.
You mentioned that you studied this issue. Obviously, you didn't make this decision on a whim. This wasn't just a, hey, let's change the speed limit kind of thing. You studied this issue. You got feedback from a bunch of people, it sounds like. Can you walk me through what that process looked like? What do those studies look like? What kind of feedback were you getting from folks you talked to about the split speed differential and obviously making this decision where you are now?
Well, I can say honestly, our traffic office would, they're the ones who do all the heavy lifting in something like this. I do know that when it came to looking at the speeds in this area, it appeared for the most part from our speed studies that motorists, who are the ones obviously using this roadway, were generally comfortable traveling between 64 and 73 miles an hour. So, passenger vehicles are, typically 5 miles an hour more than tractor trailers themselves. So the big thing here is, like I said originally, is we're looking for consistency here, because if you've got some motorists that are sticking at that 65 miles an hour and you have others that are going into 73 miles an hour, and then you have all that heavy truck traffic, which we certainly see along I-81 in Upper East Tennessee, and they're supposed to be going 55 to 60, the possibility of crashes increases. So we feel that having a consistent speed limit along this entire corridor is going to be beneficial for your typical passenger vehicles and also for truck traffic as well.
And you raised an interesting point there, and I was going to ask you about this because, knowingly or not, you've kind of placed yourself into this debate that is surrounding speed limiters right now. I don't know if you know, but FMCSA is considering a mandate for heavy trucks. It's raising all sorts of safety concerns. One of those concerns is about increased interactions, right, between passenger vehicles who would be going faster and heavy trucks, which would be forced to essentially go slower. Did you find anything in this, report, in this study here that indicated that, it is less safe to have such a wide speed differential between heavy trucks and passenger vehicles? Was there anything kind of in there that essentially raised that concern to you all?
I do know that this is an area that gets a lot of vehicles that are going through there. I think that we have up to about 60,000 vehicles per day in the busier part of that spot on I-81. It's an area that we've also been fortunate that we have seen fewer crashes over the last few years, actually at approximately 27% lower than the statewide average for similar interstate segments. And we feel that having a speed limit that everybody's on the same page will be something that will keep this roadway safe and hopefully make it even safer.
Is the Tennessee DOT, are you looking at any other highways in the state that maybe might have their limits adjusted? Or are there any examples like that?
Well, I don't know about in the future, but a few years ago, we did this. We changed the speed limits and increased them for most parts on I-40 and I-640 in the Knoxville area. So this is something that we have had experience with previously. We'll continue to do spot speed studies, and we'll make adjustments as needed and as necessary.
And I think it's worth kind of highlighting here, and I just want to make sure that I'm kind of understanding. You wouldn't have made this change, obviously, if you thought it was going to make the roads less safe, right? Based on everything that you all have studied there, it sounds like there are no concerns that you're going to make roads actually less safe by kind of evening the playing field here.
No, the top priority of the Tennessee Department of Transportation is and always has been safety. And we wouldn't we wouldn't allow any road or any bridge to be open if we felt that it presented a danger for the motoring public. We have our crews monitoring roadways every day. We believe that this decision is going to be beneficial for safety for the motoring public.
Our thanks to Mark Nakey of the Tennessee DOT for his time. I should mention that we have asked for more information and additional details from the traffic studies and public feedback related to the split speed limit on Interstate 81. We want to know what the data shows with regard to split speeds and their effect on safety. As soon as we hear back from them, we'll let you know. The details are important in a situation like this because of that push from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration mentioned briefly a short time ago. The Tennessee DOT saw no negative safety implications for ending its split speed limit differential for passenger vehicles and commercial trucks, but research does tell us there are some risks with forcing heavy trucks to travel at lower rates of speeds. Increased interactions being one concern and the safety implications that result from them, which is why there's been such fierce pushback to FMCSA's plans to implement a speed limiter mandate on most heavy trucks across the country. The opposition has come from a variety of angles, from the more than 15,000 comments to an advance notice of proposed rulemaking, from groups like OOIDA and from Congress, where two companion bills in the House and the Senate seek to stop FMCSA's plans in their tracks. During a House Transportation and Infrastructure hearing in December, Representative Mike Bost of Illinois, who grew up in a family trucking company, cited concerns from his home state.
There's two problems. One, in the state of Illinois, when I was in the state legislature, the problem is that we had one limit for trucks and one limit for cars. And we did discover through our research that it actually caused more wrecks than it would if it would just flow of traffic would have worked. Now, the other problem that you have is if you have a driver who is a skilled driver and all of a sudden he's going to get in a situation and you have now limited his ability to use speed to react, to get away and protect while driving a vehicle, you have changed the vehicle dynamics and therefore you're endangering people rather than saving them by making it to where you have a limiter that doesn't allow a professional driver to make decisions to try to either speed up to get out of the way or speed up to go around a situation that might be occurring in front of them.
Representative Bost is a co-sponsor of H.R. 3039, known as the Drive Act, the bill that would bar FMCSA from imposing a speed limiter mandate. So is Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, who let then Administrator of FMCSA, Robin Hutchison, know what he thought about such a mandate.
These drivers give many examples of situations in which they need to accelerate for safety, whether it's merging into highway speed traffic, building momentum to go up a hill, or simply keeping up with the flow of traffic. It is a hard and difficult job, and they do it well. Your policy would take those options away from them. We're tired of this. We're tired of big government.
And that is exactly what OOIDA President Todd Spencer has been shouting from the rooftops since talk of a speed limiter mandate first started.
You know, the frustrating part of this for drivers is that, okay, they have to live with the ramifications of whatever rules that these folks come up with. And of course, they live in a real world where they have to interact with other traffic and things like that. And this really isn't a complicated issue. The ideal speed policy for any agency to take, whether it be federal or state or local, is do something, support policies that try to keep traffic moving at or close to the same speed. You want to try to minimize interactions. To the extent that you can minimize interactions, you will improve highway safety because there'll be fewer of them vehicles running into each other. And any kind of policy that these folks come up with that basically increases the likelihood of interactions is not going to be good for highway safety.
FMCSA plans to publish a supplemental notice of proposed rulemaking this coming May. If that timeline holds true, the agency is likely to reveal a proposed top speed at that time. So the time to push back is now, Spencer says.
And just FYI, guys, we set up our fightingfortruckers.com website. On that website, you go there easily. You'll see an opportunity to communicate with your lawmakers on two very important pieces of legislation. The first one is the Senate Bill S-2671. The second is the House Bill H.R. 3039. What that legislation would do is it simply cuts off the funding for further consideration on behalf of FMCSA for implementing speed limiters. And it's totally appropriate legislation for Congress to be moving on. Back in 1995, Congress voted to get totally out of the business of regulating speeds and give that authority back to the states. The states were eager to take it back. And, you know, for the most part, you know, there are examples where we think they don't use the best common sense, but for the most part, the states are in a much better position to implement, to determine for themselves what would be the safest policies within their state. And to kind of cut to the chase, over 30 states have maximum speed limits of 70 miles per hour or higher. So obviously, you know how much when FMCSA picks a slower speed for trucks, basically that kind of shows how out of touch they are when it comes to what really goes on our highways in America. And certainly turning any kind of a policy that turns trucks into rolling roadblocks and basically that's what would happen with this. It's simply not good safety policy. And from the standpoint of people that drive trucks, Jiminy, making it harder to do the job that a job that is absolutely critical to every part of our society today, making it harder for drivers to do that job safely just simply doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
You heard the man. That website again is fightingfortruckers.com. For Landline Now, I'm Scott Thompson, and we're back in just a moment.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
for can't miss accuracy. Weigh your truck on a cat scale.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
A blank space on many maps with the distance between parking spaces seemingly as great as infinity. It is the boundary that separates safety and security from the dangers of the road, the space between electronic signs and a place in which to rest. It is not a dimension of the imagination, but instead the reality faced by truck drivers every single day. It is a place we call the parking zone. Here are your guides for this journey into parking news good and bad, Scott Thompson and Tyson Fisher.
Thanks, Mark. Tyson, good to see you.
Nice being here.
Let's jump right in here, starting with a middle finger to truck drivers in Palm Beach, Florida. This story has a lot of ins and outs. But basically, we've got the county telling truck drivers there that they can't park their own trucks in a community known as the Acreage. I think I got kind of the points there. Yeah. What can you tell us about this?
So this has been going on for more than a year. And so this is a town in Palm Beach County, Florida, as you pointed out, called the Acreage. And they've been debating truck parking on residential property for quite a while now. That debate has finally come to an end. So basically, there has been a ban on truck parking in residential property for forever. But it's one of those situations to where the town never really enforced it, and truckers have been living there for decades. And it's just been quietly understood. It's like, yeah, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
But within the past year, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but people started complaining. It started to get enforced. It sparked this debate. So recently, the county commission they voted unanimously to change that ordinance. And what they did do is, so previously there was a weight limit of 12,500 pounds. They increased that to 16,000 pounds. So that still falls way short of any Class 8 vehicle.
Just a tad, yeah.
So it essentially keeps intact that that truck ban on private residential property. So that kind of ends the debate, kind of. So the rule doesn't go into effect until July 1st. That delay was given so that a lawyer for two truckers who live there can file a lawsuit. So the county commission was basically told, you do this, we're going to sue you. And so that lawsuit hasn't been filed yet, but they're kind of leaving room for that to happen. So, but the thing is, it's not completely over for truckers who live in that town. So the county commissioners, they're asking the county planners to find out what can be done to keep current truckers who live in the city, to keep them in the city. And so the commission, they expect to review those proposals in May. So the city planners are going to figure something out. I don't know what, but those proposals will be reviewed here in just a few months. So yeah.
These are always tricky for me, at least, because I understand if you're in a residential community, you may not want a big tractor trailer parked on your street. I understand that. The thing here is that they've been doing it looks like, for quite a while now. And I guess the question becomes, where do you want them to park?
Right.
And if there are options there, I don't know. There may very well be nearby options, but I mean, they've got to make some accommodations, you would hope and you would think, for these folks.
Right, and that's exactly what the city the county planners are going to do. They're going to look at possible zoning changes for truck parking lots and see if that can help with them. So, at one point, there was one commissioner who was kind of on the side of truckers, tried to carve out an exception for two 80,000-pound trucks on each lot. Mm-hmm. That got struck down. That same commissioner, Sarah Baxter, she even tried to grandfather in existing truck drivers. So if you've lived in this city for, all your life and now this is happening, doesn't apply to you, struck down also. So there were some attempts, there were some people on the side of truckers, but, alas, here we are. So.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. As you mentioned, it looks like this is going to follow some legal challenges here. Legal challenges will follow, but we'll keep an eye on this one. Again, that's one kind of middle finger to truck drivers. Here's another one from the other hand, I guess, in Illinois, in the city of Crystal Lake, where we've talked about this. A local trucking company was trying to expand. They wanted to expand. They went through all the proper channels to get that done, but residents in the city there have basically said, no, you can't do it.
Yeah, this is another basically NIMBY case, not my backyard thing, to where, the city council, like about 100 residents showed up, a big, spectacle and whatnot. So, long story short, recently the Crystal Lake City Council denied NVA Transportation's bid for that expansion. That expansion for a freight terminal called for, it was more than 300 truck parking spaces. So, it was, fairly significant. Yeah. So with that said, this transportation company, they've already spent like more than $600,000 on the plan. So they were pretty, literally invested into this happening. And they even made accommodations to please the city. Usually when you're making these plans, you talk with the city. They'll tell you, we don't like it because of this, and you make concessions.
Sure.
They even eliminated like 50 truck parking spaces to please the city. But
it wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough, unfortunately. What's really unfortunate about this is that this denial comes despite traffic, environmental, and home value studies all finding that the expansion would not have significant effects on the area. So this is largely NIMBY driven. And so, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a lawsuit that came out of this also for unconstitutionally being denied a permit, which I have seen happen several times before. Don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll be keeping an eye out to see if that does happen. But this is just 45 miles northwest of Chicago, and anyone who drives near Chicago knows it's parking and is needed in the Chicago area.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that you've got so many people there too. I think they had a petition that had something close to like 2,000 signatures on it. So quite a bit of pushback there. And I think one of the stories that I saw out there was somebody saying that, hey, we like your company. We think you're doing good stuff, but we don't want you we don't want you growing. We don't want you growing here, which what do you say to that?
What can you do?
I don't know. Yeah. So we started off with a couple stories, maybe not so great for truck parking. This one, a bit more positive, out of Surprise City, Arizona. They did have an issue there with illegal truck parking, but instead of just kicking trucks out, they have a solution in mind.
Yeah, so this is kind of a good news, bad news thing, but this is mostly positive. So the city council in Surprise, Arizona, they recently voted to expand the truck parking ban in residential areas. So there was previously, the truck parking ban was only for residential areas. That's been expanded to all city streets and right-of-way. That goes into effect March 21st. All right, so that's the bad news. Rather than just do that and say and wash their hands of it, it's like, well, that's done.
Good luck.
Nope. Right.
See you later.
The city is providing truck parking at 3 roads located in commercial and industrial areas. So in total, the city of Surprise will supply 40 truck parking spaces, which based on their studies, that basically accommodates 80% of the average truck parking demand in the city. So,
pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So this is a quote from one council member, Chris Judge. He said, "I'm glad that we went through this. I've talked to some of our other neighboring cities, and they passed an ordinance and washed their hands of it and said, you can't park anywhere in the city. Just go away."
We've seen that so much.
Most of the times, that's what we see.
Yeah.
The assistant city manager, Tracy Montgomery, she told the council, of all the cities that are limiting truck parking, we know of none that are actually going out and providing alternative locations for trucks to park. I think that's significant because it sends a message that you all want to send. We don't just want to send you away. We want to give you a place to park. And so this city really gets it for the most part. This is the way to do it. And the thing is, this isn't free for them. It's free for truckers. By the way, this is free truck parking. It's going to cost the city more than $100,000 a year to maintain. So, but the thing is, the city's finding the way to make it work. They're kind of rearranging their budgets and saying, all right, things can be shifted. We can pay for this. It's fine. We're going to give these truckers a place to park. This is something that we don't see very often that we need to see more of. And this is just, I think it's a nice model that, other cities can follow when they're dealing with their truck parking situation.
Yeah, and Surprise is not a small city either. That's a relatively big city that, as you said, recognizes the issue here and is doing something about it. So it's refreshing to see that. Let's move on to an interesting concept out of Bucks County, Pennsylvania in Falls Township, which is considering a regional truck stop. What's this about?
Regional truck stop is a word that I understand. The word that they use, I thought was very interesting, is a freight village.
Sounds fancy.
It does, doesn't it? So Falls Township supervisors, they just unanimously supported a study to basically determine the viability of a 24-hour, again, this is a quote from them, freight village support facility. So another word for it's regional truck stop. It would serve as a place for long-haul truckers to park their vehicles and sleep overnight. So we're talking long-term overnight truck parking. It would also include a variety of amenities, and this is where the village part comes in, which is I found interesting. Those amenities would include banking, medical, retail, and truck repair. So,
okay,
yeah, I know. So it's more than just a truck stop. Like,
park and stay a while.
Yeah, right.
Sounds nice.
The only thing that truck drivers might be a little hesitant about, and I've heard this criticism in other parking facilities, is there will be a weigh station for police officers who do vehicle inspections. That would be part of the facility as well. I know some truckers will say that this is a trap. It's typically really not the case. I've talked to many state departments, and they emphasize that no, they're not just going to do random inspections. It's just just the way that it's just business, basically.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, this township, they recognize that in this region, there is a huge demand for not just freight in general, but consequently for truck parking and the truck traffic that comes with it. And so rather than just ignore it, they're just trying to do something about it. So again, this is just a viability study to see if this will actually work. There's no really details known, exactly about how many parking spaces or where it would be. But I'll keep an eye on this to see where this viability study goes, and hopefully in the future we'll see this pretty cool concept called a freight village.
A freight village, yeah. I mean, this is something that if it is successful and it isn't too overbearing for the county there, maybe we'll see it elsewhere.
Nice.
And we'll see what happens there. Let's move on here real quick to a plan. We've got a private company here. They've got a plan for converting abandoned sites into paid truck parking. We actually have spoken about this on the show before, several months ago, but I don't think we've talked to you about it. This is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I should have the name of the company in front of me.
Contrade Holdings.
Thank you.
Yes.
It just completely slipped my mind. So, I recently talked to, I think it was the owner of that, and a lot of good things to say about this. So basically what this company is doing is they want to build more truck parking spaces across the country. And one way of doing this, and it's not the only way, but one way they're looking at is converting abandoned drive-in movie theaters to truck parking facilities, essentially. So this is based in Texas, and from what I understand, they haven't built any yet, but they are looking to build soon in the state of Texas, and then basically just expanding from there. What you need to know about this is that it is paid parking. With that being said, free truck parking comes in two forms: rest areas and truck stops. Truck stops can only build so much. Rest areas are bare bones parking, Everything else is going to come down to paid parking, which is fine, especially when this company wants to provide several amenities, including showers, laundries, possibly restaurants. And so, again, this is something that they're looking to do across busy corridors in Texas. I think he said from there, maybe looking from Georgia and just expanding. But it's just more private companies moving in to address the truck parking while, the government isn't really doing much right now.
Yeah, it's going to take a village, as we've talked about before, and this is certainly one thing that could be considered. Tyson, a pleasure as always. We encourage people to check out your work at landline.media and in every issue of Landline Magazine. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
It's break time, so we'll step away for a moment, but we won't be long, so stick around.
Capital Reman, your leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Let us help you avoid costly downtime and repairs by visiting capitalreman.com today. Use code OOIDA10 to receive your member benefits.
Stock up on Howe's Diesel Treat, the nation's most trusted anti-gel. And to be safe from the harshest winter conditions, make sure you have Howe's Diesel Lifeline on hand, the fastest-acting gelling rescue product. Available nationwide, Howe's products are designed to keep you rolling through the toughest conditions. Visit Howe'sProducts.com.
Attention professional drivers, are you behind on your tax filings? You owe money? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. You watch the road, we'll keep an eye on the IRS. Call now, 855-976-4291.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. There are a number of critical questions you need to answer in order to run a successful trucking business. Among the most important of those questions are, where's the freight going to be and how much is it going to pay? Today, Landline Now senior correspondent Ashley Blackford will bring us answers to both of those important questions with a look at this week's freight markets with the folks from DAT. Here's Ashley now with the report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello once again to Robert Rouse at DAT. How are you doing today, Robert?
I'm doing great, Ashley. Thanks for asking.
Let's take a look at last week. How did the spot market perform?
Yeah, it looked actually some reasonable numbers last week. The number of weekly load posts on the DAT1 load board rose by about 8.9% last week, up to 2.2 million. Up week over week, the total number of load posts are down about 11.3% year over year, with reefer loads driving the biggest decrease, down about 20% compared to this time last year. The thing to note is that some of that increase is most likely due to the end of the month push to get all the goods out. So that could be part of the reason for that increase. When we look on the other side, look at the total number of trucks on the DAT load board, they actually fell by about 2.9% down to 341,000 trucks last week. That is about 5% lower year over year than last year. That's to be expected with a higher load volume as trucks are able to find loads pretty quickly. One of the things we wanted to touch on is really looking at the greater market. Last year in March, we saw Northern California get blasted with multiple feet of snow. And this major weather event was a huge disruption to the freight movement in the entire area. Over the weekend, the same region got hit with another nasty storm, bringing massive amounts of snow and wind. And since we saw a similar event last year, we have a pretty good comparison point to understand how it might impact the spot market this year. So first, this weather event was predicted to hit a couple of days ahead of time. This led to a large week-over-week load volume increase in impacted markets like Ontario, California, Los Angeles, Stockton, and San Francisco, all increasing anywhere from 20 to 36% in total load volumes as loads were really cranking to get out of there before the storm got there. Weekly numbers for all West Coast markets rose higher than average, the national average, at about 27% week over week, and that's likely influenced by all those storms. Next, we know that truck capacity in the West Coast markets will be impacted as trucks take an extra day or more on loads getting stuck in the snow. I saw a lot of trucks getting stuck on Donner Pass for multiple days over the weekend. Last, we know that a storm like this may negatively impact produce volumes. Last year was pretty devastating to a lot of crops. Produce like almond and stone fruit can be killed by cold temperatures like we saw over the weekend. The other impact is that excessive flooding as the large snowpack melts over the next month may impact produce yields as we move into the spring. So when we look at overall the spot rates, even though we saw loads increase last week, we saw overall rates for both vans and reefers decrease again. After dropping about 15 cents per mile over the prior 4 weeks, the slide and dry van line haul rates slowed considerably last week. At just over $2.05 per mile, line haul rates were down less than a penny per mile last week. Although the correction may be short-lived after about a 5% higher volume of loads moved due to the end of the month shipping. When we look at reefers, with produce volumes lagging this time of year, we're seeing the national average reefer spot rate continue to cool. It's down about 2 cents per mile last week. So at $2.38 per mile, line haul rates have dropped for 6 straight weeks, and they're down about 21 cents per mile since the mid-January rate surge as cold temperatures gripped a large section of the country. Lastly, with a hint of spring in the air, we're seeing early signs of improvement in flatbed volumes, up 9% week over week as shippers begin to stage freight ahead of the growing seasons. After dropping for 4 weeks, flatbed line haul rates reversed course, increasing by about a penny per mile to an average of $2.54 per mile last week.
What markets should owner-operators know more about this week?
Yeah, recently we've talked about the slow start to the produce season and its impact on reefer volumes. Another trend that we're watching is that beef production has dropped as cattle inventories have shrunk across the country. According to the USDA, contributing to a lower reefer volume for fresh and frozen beef is shrinking inventory cattle. It's down about 2% year over year, and the lowest in the last 73 years. For reefer carriers, the truckload volume of beef has dropped by about 14% since the 20-year record high in March of 2022. And that's the equivalent of about 7,400 fewer monthly truckloads of beef. U.S. cattle continues to dwindle after a drought and high input costs, pressuring ranchers to sell off their herds. And that's shrinking the national head count to 87.2 million heads of cattle as of January 1st. And that's according to the USDA cattle report. Domestic beef production is about 3% lower than last January, while imports are about 10% higher and at the highest in the last 30 years. And that's all according to the USDA data. Higher imports of beef change the origin of frozen and fresh beef truckloads for carriers from the beef patch in the American Midwest to cross-border markets and ports. Reefer loads moved in Texas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Kansas are about 2.7% lower year over year, and that's following last week's 2% decrease in total load volume. According to USDA data, 27% of U.S. beef imports came from Canada last year, while 18% came from Australia, with just over half arriving in the Port of Oakland. So looking at the Port of Oakland, near that Port of Oakland, there are several cold storage facilities that cater specifically to temperature-controlled cargo. One of the key facilities is Coolport Oakland. It's a next-generation cold storage and logistics facility that spans about 25 acres. This facility, which opened in November of 2018, was a collaboration between Lineage Logistics and Drybach Enterprises. It includes 280,000 square feet depot with 90 truck doors and has the capacity to handle over 1 million tons of perishable product annually. Coolport also offers a range of services such as rail transload, truck cross-dock operations, frozen and refrigerated storage, and import-export services, and even has on-site USDA inspection capabilities. These facilities play a pretty crucial role in the cold chain logistics, providing essential services for the transition of temperature-controlled cargo through Northern California and connecting to U.S. producers to international markets, and even particularly in Asia.
What tips do you have for owner-operators this week?
Yeah, this week's another interesting one. It's time for Spring Forward as daylight savings begins this Sunday, March 10th. Despite many Americans' aversion to having to spring forward and fall back each year because of daylight savings time, recent attempts by states to switch to permanent daylight savings time have gone dark. That is despite growing support to eliminate the changing clocks twice yearly. A survey by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine in 2020 found that 63% of Americans support a national permanent year-round routine. So what are some top tips around daylight savings times? You can start to prepare for spring forward in March by gradually shifting your sleep schedule leading up to that change time. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine advises adjusting your schedule slowly by going to bed around 15 to 20 minutes earlier each day. The timing of other daily activities such as meals and exercise can also be gradually adjusted forward. By making these changes gradually over a week before the time change, you can begin daylight savings time having already started to acclimate to the new time on the clock. It's also essential to obtain quality sleep in nights leading up to the time change. If you enter daylight savings weekend already sleep deprived, you'll likely have significant ill effects in response to the time change this Sunday.
If our listeners want more information, where can they go for that?
Yeah, you can get the latest rate information at dat.com/trendlines or look for the weekly market updates on the DAT blog. They're published every Wednesday.
All right, Robert, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashley.
That was Robert Rouse with DAT. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.